and welcome back to Literally Literary. If this is your first time joining us, be sure to check out our previous episodes. Today, we're joined by Kasi Olguin Petinato, author of The 5 Stages of Stuttering.
Hey, Cassie.
Welcome.
What's up?
So
Here's
glad to have you here.
Here's the cover.
We're going to get these signed.
Yes,
You know.
so excited.
Also, as we said in part 1,
This is our 100th episode. So
Oh, yes.
thank you for the cake, Reina.
Yeah, thanks for the pizza.
Yeah.
cake, we
Yeah.
got pizza.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
100th episode.
Yeah. So excited.
Special occasion. We did, when we say we did, I started with the idea of doing a live episode where we could set up like this, but then also have people like watching in and they could like,
Oh, wow.
and then ask questions at the end.
That would have been crazy.
Would have been fun,
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll do that for the 200th episode when you have your 4th book out.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
So you just came back
yeah.
from Martha's
I
Vineyard.
did.
How
yes.
was that?
Yeah, it was actually a really great experience. The first couple of days were rough for me just because of the culture shock and being away from here. We were talking about how El Paso's kind of like a bubble,
Yeah.
and I stepped out of my bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah, but after that, I did really good. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I came back really refreshed and inspired.
Great. We're thinking about what kind of work that those intensive workshops inspire, and reading a little bit of your work now. And this might be a later question, but maybe thinking about like future projects or anything that might have come inspired from Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, I went to Martha's Vineyard with my 3rd book in mind. And so, like, I don't really know what it's going to be yet, what form it's going to take. And so I had a manuscript session with one of the teachers there, and he really encouraged me and helped me to not freak out so much about maybe going in a different direction than what I've been doing, because I feel my poetry is going there, and it's scary for me.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had like an origin question, kind of maybe not too far back, but like, and especially in part 2, we did talk more about the, your time at Papagayo and, how important that was for you and having Isela there. A lot of our listeners are Papagayo students. And so it's really awesome to have you as like our first Papagayo student published
Yeah, that's
offer.
super cool.
Could you talk a little bit about what you learned from Papagayo with Isela, and how that kind of prepared you
Yeah.
for this?
I was still in high school when I met Isela. I was 13 going on 14. And so I met her through a writing workshop, and she just saw, I don't know, something in me and took me under her wing. And she said, I want to develop a literary center at Rio Grande campus, and I want you to help me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And so we both kind of came up with a plan on how we were going to do that and what we were going to name it, what we were going to do. And it helped me grow as not only a writer, but an organizer and the love for my community. I've always had that passion.
And then you guys would publish that chapbook too, right? So
Right.
there
We
was
had
even publishing there.
a Papagayo chapbook. And then eventually I became a poetry editor 1 year for Chrysalis. And
Oh, yeah?
that was like a really great experience. So I owe a lot to Isela. She was my first poetry teacher, and she really helped me a lot.
That's awesome.
Even when I went on to UTEP, I would come back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
remember that.
Cool.
Can I ask another question?
Please.
I know we talked about it in one of the episodes, but I wanted to kind of ask you about like your experience, like publishing with Flower Song. We talked about how you kind of fought for the sizing, and then we also talked about how you were the one that designed the cover.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see if you would go into a little bit of that and your
Yeah.
experience doing all of that.
I did freak out about the size. I thought I was going to have to fight Edward on it, but he was really cool about it. Like I don't know what I was thinking, you know, because I've never met him. I've never even talked to him. But he's like been very supportive of what I wanted. I even told him, no, this is the size that it needs to be. And he was like, okay. And it was actually perfect. Like I didn't realize that the cover fit the size that I had told him. So it was kind of like meant to be. And for the cover, I also didn't know if he was going to go for it because I said, oh, look, I have this idea. Do you have any artist or a sketch person that could do something like this? And he told me, no, that's the cover. I was like, oh shit, okay. Like he was cool with it. So like I would have been cool with him finding somebody to do something like that, but he thought it was perfect to have, you know, my face. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. There's poems that cater specifically to like a confession, I think is one of those that's arranged specifically to the page size.
Yeah. A lot of them were just, my lines were getting longer and I noticed the form and stuff like that. I was just playing a lot with that. And I needed that size so the poems could fit instead of the other way around. Like I didn't want my poems to change to fit the book. The size that he wanted.
Yeah. Because most poetry collections are a bit smaller than this.
Yeah. I actually love how big it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely stands out, you know, so that's nice.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about your process, just because I'm always really interested in seeing, you know, how everyone thinks about their poems, like if they get inspired by certain things, if they read certain things, if they already have ideas or, you know, workshop on their own or whatever. So what is your process like?
My work since like 2001, 2002 has been about grief, unprocessed grief. And it started with my art shows that I've had and readings through those art shows. And so like this one day I was going through Instagram, and I came across like this video series section called Adaptability. And it interviewed a man who had stuttering issues. And it's a really cool video. I have the link for it that I could, you know, send you guys. But I was like, whoa, like I could do something like that. I saw a connection between grief and stuttering and how, you know, like when you can't speak your grief, you end up stuttering. And I thought I could do an emotional stutter.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, so in this case, it was this video that inspired you and seeing those connections between the 5 stages of stuttering, the 5 stages of grief, and already having so much to talk about.
It really touched me, and I was like, oh, I could totally make a book on that and maybe, you know, get this stuff out of me, the things that haunt me. So I thought about like, well, what are the things that really are my ghosts? And so I think it's 7 like topics in the book that I touch on, that I go through the stages. And I went through the process of the 5 stages of grief, and it was terrible.
Yeah, I was going to ask you something similar. You're already kind of touching on that. Like anytime we read or we have read anything that's so deeply personal, I always wonder, you know, about like, I don't know, whether it's more cathartic or whether there's like some level of guilt or like repercussions with family or like, you know, everything that comes with writing this and putting it out in the world. So it sounds like it was hard, but it was also something that maybe helped in a way.
Yeah, I think I'm a pain junkie. I don't know. Like in my family, I'm just the one that digs, and I don't stop until it's like, no, I need to find out why, you know, why this pain is here. And so I'm just kind of brave like that. To go through that, because none of my family would do that. And so like my brother has not read these, and I wouldn't give it to him just because he wouldn't get it.
Do you think he would try and read it if he were give it to him?
I gave him the Lamb's Tale, and it was pretty bad. Like the feedback he gave me on that, he was pretty hurtful in his comments, and so I was like, oh, there's no way I'm going to give him this one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
On that other end, I see your mom a lot at your readings and shows, and Peter. And how are their reception to these?
My mom has this weird thing that she laughs at my readings, and I'm still trying to figure out if it's a laugh because damn, she's good. Like she wrote it really good that it's funny, or if she's embarrassed and it's a nervous laugh. So I can't really tell. But I mean, she's there, so I try to focus on that. She's always been there, but sometimes it really annoys me. And I was like, how can I incorporate this in my performances? You know, like, oh, that's my mom. She laughs at my pain, you know?
I've heard you say that. That's interesting. That's something to explore in the next book.
Right? Maybe. I don't know.
Different types of laugh responses.
And then Peter, well, yeah, he's, you know, my ex-spouse, and we're still really good friends, and he goes to my readings all the time.
That's awesome. That's nice. Support.
Yeah.
I guess my next question is just like about your editing process. I know you and Aldo really help each other out with your editing, and you guys workshop together. But maybe if you could go into a little bit more detail of like what your editing process is, and I guess just the importance of community in writing.
Yeah. That's actually my favorite part of being a poet is the editing part. And I listen to my poems to see what they want. I don't know like where that comes from. I just hear them. And I ask, so like, what do you want to say? What form do you want to take? And I just kind of follow that instinct with my editing for sure. And I think with like my art shows, I'm just not like a on canvas type artist. I like doing installations and, you know, interactive type stuff. And I feel like I do that with my poems in a poetic way. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. Because I was going to ask you, there's a lot of experimentation in form, especially towards the latter half of the book.
Yeah.
You know, what kind of, did those poems start off that unique, or did over time in the editing process you decided to mess around more with?
Yeah, over time I decided to mess around with them. I'm also very visual. And it's like, oh, like I don't like that it's looking just like a mainstream type, you know, form. I think it should be this way or that way. And if I'm stuttering, I could play a lot with it more for sure.
And kind of a related question, we always like asking our guests, and actually Raina's the one who usually asks this, so I'll steal this from her. But
Rude.
like, what advice do you have for, you know, students? We talked in part one, as you know, about the students you inspired at the Papagayo workshops. But just in general, like, what would you say to students or just, you know, writers who are interested in like putting stuff together or in publishing?
Yeah. I would say to follow your instinct on where it's going to go. Like, I know sometimes we want to write to please our audience, or it's like, oh, this is what I should write, you know, to please somebody. But I would say to write what you want to write. And I'm a very open, vulnerable, like kind of confessional poet. And so that's the poetry that I like to read. I would also say to read a lot of poets that, you know, they like and get ideas from that.
So who would that be for you?
I have a list because I'm so bad at it.
No, yeah, get your notes.
Yeah. My favorite poet right now is Layla Chatty. I love her work. I love how open she is about religion and her illness. It's not the same as mine, but I just love reading about her life and how she has dealt with that. Nahar, her book New Names for Lost Things is like a really cool book that I have gotten a lot of inspiration from. Cheryl Luna, I've always loved
awesome.
her work since I was a teenager, and she blurred my book.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, and Charles Simic. Erica Sanchez wrote a book called Crying in the Bathroom that really like helped me. She was like another Chicana that's struggling with vulvodynia as well. And I was like, holy crap, I didn't know that there were other women who, you know, struggle with that. It's a very hidden, shameful type thing. Yeah.
Well, those are some good recommendations. But I really like your suggestion to read what they like, right? So there are, of course, things that speak to us, and we try to bring that into the classroom whenever we can, you know, like these are poets that we like, but a lot of times we forget, you know, to tell our students to find what they like, right? So I try to remember to tell them, you know, if you don't like poetry, you just haven't found the right poet.
Exactly,
You know,
yeah.
you haven't found someone that really speaks to you or you can relate to. So they're definitely out there. You just kind of have to search for them.
I remember always going to the library, and I would ask the librarian, "Where's the poetry section?" I still do that, and I just go through each book and see what I like, and that's how I started to gain like, oh, okay, this is how I want to write too.
Yeah, that's cool.
We were talking, I don't know, I think it was part 1 of the series where this lends itself very nicely to writing exercises where you have students. Do you want to speak about how you might take this around and do workshops based off of the structure of the book, like the stages?
Yeah, I think the stages are really cool because it has like repetitions. I'm forgetting my own book.
The disfluencies, right?
Yeah, prolongations and blocks and interjections. And I always think of this as also emotional and literal. And I think like in workshops, I could play around with that a lot. And like one of the questions I think I had for the students was, what have you held, like what anger have you suppressed? And if you could release it, like how would you say it in a stutter? So stuff like that. I think it's very therapeutic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm smiling because I remembered when you did your Papagayo workshop, and a couple of my students did share. Like we peer pressured them too, but there was another one who loved going to a lot of the Papagayo workshops, and she wrote all the time. And she the next day I had her for class, and she's like, I didn't share because it was too like, but that was the point, you know.
Yeah.
So
I
she
know-
got something out of it for sure.
Yeah. I know that I'm not for everyone. I'm so like, let's get in touch with your pain, your grief, like all that shit, and let's just release it. And I know that's not for everybody, and I'm aware of that, and I just have to be like, well, this is who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know that I've struggled with that a lot. Like maybe I'm too much, maybe it's too sad, too depressing.
Yeah, I think that was kind of one of the things that I was trying to relate to students. Like, yeah, I mean, that's the point of it, you know. And so she wrote some really good work.
Yeah.
I told her, like, I encouraged her to reach out to you, and like, because it really, she wrote something really great out of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's
ahead.
good to know, because I wasn't sure after the workshop. I went to Vanessa and I'm like, oh man, I was really shitty.
I was like, no, it was great.
Nah.
Yeah. I know the Lamb's Tail one was really good because I had a PowerPoint, and with this one, I didn't know how to do a PowerPoint, but maybe I should have. I don't know.
You know, and I think the space makes a difference because, as you know, like the Papagayo room, like it kind of lends itself to being a bit more personal, you know, because it's so kind of cramped in there, right?
Yeah. That's true.
And the stage, you know, there's something imposing about like going up there, right? Especially for our students who are like are barely learning the language in some cases.
That's actually a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a question about the future. If maybe
Sorry. Okay. Like, just in general, or
Sorry, my bad.
not to say that you're like you know, a prophet or something, but you know, you've written a lot of poetry, and so I was curious, like, are you thinking about you know, going into prose, or like, you know, because I know like you do a lot with like We talked about your artwork as well, and you're a musician too. So have you thought about that?
About prose poetry?
Or just even
Oh.
like short stories or fiction?
Yeah, that's funny that you say that because in Martha's Vineyard, of course, I took the, poetry classes. And at the end, I took a fiction one because I just have this, I don't know, this fiction poetry piece kind of up in the air. And when I took it, it gave me ideas. And I was like, wow, like I never thought I could write a poem. That's not true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I'm going in a very different direction. And like I had said, I don't know why I'm so scared about that. I feel like my readers aren't going to like it. But that's where I feel I need to go. Because when I came back from Ireland, I don't think I ever recovered from that. And I wrote a lot of poetry there. And it's like poetry about birds and mountains and plants. And I'm like, what is this?
Sounds like you were inspired.
I was. And it's so different from what I write because I feel like I'm ready to get out of this and go in a new direction. And Ireland is all over this because I was grieving it. And now that I went, like I tasted and seen it, and I feel like my poetry is gonna change because of it, and that's how I feel like my future is gonna be. Just kind of growing, I'm maturing and growing. And I mean, what kind of writer would I be if I kept writing about grief? It's like my readers are gonna be like, "Damn, girl, are you ever gonna, like get out of
It's
this?"
only 5 stages.
Yeah. And so, of course, like, I won't ever get over what's in this book. Like, it's just with me. And some days I don't even think about it. Other days it, like, hits me really bad. But I'm learning, like I had said, to, like, grow around the stutter and find new things. I want to find joy in my suffering and write about that. Because for sure, I did have suffering in Ireland. And I connected Ireland to home. There was a lot of connections between that I like really surprised me. Yeah. So I'm really excited about my third book.
That'll be fun to read.
Yeah.
Okay. I think now, if it's okay with you, Cassie, we can get a little more into the specific collection,
Yes.
specific poems, and ask questions that we maybe had or things that you want to touch on as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So many questions. I really don't. A lot of them we kind of like talk through in the earlier podcasts. I know that there was the Soy Chicana one that you read at the Papagayo work. It might have been at the Papagayo workshop.
Yeah.
My only question was just like the pronunciation. Like, why did you choose those specific words to be included with their English pronunciation, I guess, and why not
Yeah.
other ones?
So I wrote this poem first in English, and then I had my partner, David Romo, look at it and be like, I want to change this into Spanish. And I remember like I went up to him crying about it because this is something that really hurts me. Not knowing Spanish, not knowing how to write it. And he's like, well, which ones can't you pronounce? And so the ones that have the pronunciation are the ones I can't say. So like, it's
Okay.
as simple as that. It's nothing really like crazy. The ones that I did are because I don't know how to say them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So he helped me to form the poem.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was
That
really
is cool.
cool. And the me, like it kind of worked out that way, but I was having trouble like with the MI. It's like, do I say me or what me? Like what the hell do I do? I was so frustrated, and that's why it's in the stage of anger, because I'm just so angry that I feel like I sound so stupid. But it's funny because I end up reading this at every reading. It's become my anthem.
Yeah.
And this is what being a Chicana means to me. And it's kind of ironic because a Chicana like knows Spanish. They know their roots. And for me, it's like I don't. But maybe that's what makes me Chicana.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah. And really, like Soy Chicana because of David. Like he helped me in the path that I needed to go. He helped me discover who I am as a Mexican, as a Chicana. And I always get so emotional about it because I just kind of didn't know who I was until I met him.
And I had a question about this poem in terms of the bolding.
Okay.
Is there like a specific reason why you bold it, or just to kind of make the pronunciation jump out, or?
Yeah, it's for the stutter purposes. Just for the stuttering. Like it was hard to be like, how am I gonna write a stutter? Like I'm not really a person who stutters. And so in my imagination I thought this is how you would write the stutter. Like if you didn't know Spanish, that's how you would say it.
Okay.
Yeah. And the more that I read this, the more that like I sound pretty good.
Well, that's part of it, right? And like just learning and practicing and reading and all of that. I love the title. I love the repetition. I love the claiming of it. So that was one of my favorite poems.
Yeah. And like the trader part is not because I'm leaving my Mexicanness. It's because I'm returning to it. I'm a trader because I am speaking Spanish, because I am reclaiming my roots, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
We did bring that up in the episode.
Yeah. For confession, I just want to say real fast, like this poem, I wept through it because I didn't know how I was going to write it because I'm a very complicated woman. Like I feel two things at once. And it was like, and I was very into Christianity and the Bible, and I gave my whole heart to it. And so the Bible verses got me through like going ahead with the pregnancy, but I also didn't want to at the same time. And so I thought, oh, like, why don't I do a box? And it was the perfect way to honor my daughter, because I was thinking about when she gets older and she reads this, like, just to be like, oh, my mom didn't want me. But you know, there's two truths. It's like, no, like I didn't, but also like I did want you because of these scriptures like held me together. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Like that.
Yeah. Any other questions?
How do you want people to read that one? Which part first?
I mean, it's up to the reader, but honestly, I would read the scripture part first because it's more shocking. Like it's all these scriptures about, oh, like you created her, you know, you're going to give me strength, childbirth, it's a blessing. And then you read the middle, it's like, I don't want to have this pregnancy. And it's like, whoa, you know, the two contrasts. So I would read the outside verses first.
Yeah. That's how I think we all kind of read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was fighting myself. So I was like, I want to know what's in the box.
What's in the box?
No, literally.
Nice 7 reference there.
Did we not do that one?
I'm a 90s baby.
No.
I know, like that was.
It wasn't my
It should have
mind,
been.
but
Yeah, mine too.
For the well on 43, for part 2, we talked about the, you know, the like kind of that VHS component that you had. And so I was wondering, you know, if you have plans for an audiobook and whether you were going to integrate like sound effects maybe, or what if you had planned that.
some sound design.
That's a great question. I never thought about it, but that could be a cool project, like a side project to do for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe incorporate my theremin and some weird sounds, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would certainly fit your style, right?
Yeah.
Just to kind of keep the art going in another.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, that gave me a really good idea. So thank you.
Yeah, we talked about it in part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know many poetry collections that are audiobooks. Is that something that's popular? Or?
I think
Yeah.
more now. I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's more.
I gotta ask Edward.
Yeah.
For example, Gabriel Dosal did his border simulator
Okay.
in an audiobook.
And then the translator, you said read the Spanish part, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then
That's super cool.
and I know a couple other poets who have turned theirs into, but they're also like page and stage poets. So like they want to perform their pieces as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also what I'm doing, like working on my craft, but also my performance and how I read is like really important to me. And I feel like I'm not where I want to be. So I keep challenging myself and I keep trying to push to see how I want to read stuff. And yeah.
Do you mean in terms of like what you emphasize, your tone? Like
Yeah, even my body, like what, like not just being stiff, but being comfortable with my body. I find that when I read, I'm not part of the poem because it's like I wrote this, a year ago and I already went through the process. So when I read it, I'm like disconnected from it. And I want to go back to that. So in July, I'm taking a theater class to maybe help me with that. Yeah.
cool.
That's how dedicated I am.
is that what's that theater class? Is it a community or
It's at the Playhouse. Apostle Playhouse.
nice?
Yeah.
You might have already kind of answered this without me needing to ask, but like, is there a piece, we talked about Surgicana that you feel most proud of and that, in terms of how it turned out?
Oh, do I feel proud of that one?
Or like the one that you feel most proud of
Yeah, I
from
think
this collection?
Yeah, those and the ones about my brother, because I've never written about my brother in that way, and I never realized, wow, like him leaving to the military really messed me up. Like I didn't know that all of my 20s that I was just like holding that in, and I'm really proud of those. Those are one of my favorites. Getting that out there,
Yeah.
yeah. All of them I'm proud of. Like
Yeah.
I look at it and it's like, oh man, I really got it out. Like I was
Yeah.
holding so much.
Yeah. I think in part 2, we really went into Rogue. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Rogue.
I was going to ask if you could talk a little bit more about Operation Wetback, just because I feel like this one does stand out from the rest of the
Can
collection.
you tell me the piece?
Yeah, 62. And what the sacred clown means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I have an idea. I was editing the other episode earlier and I was like, I didn't say it while we were recording, but then like as I was editing, I was like, oh wait, I think I know what this is.
Yeah, so Operation Wetback is in the last stage revisions, and I was thinking about my dad and how, like, why he is the way he is and how I can reconcile with that. And it's like, well, he's a wetback. And he doesn't know it though. Like, and so the sacred clown is, so my nickname used to be Soy Payasa, and I always felt like that was really sacred to who I am, and I've lost that a little bit, and I'm trying to reclaim that. So that's why it says my father hid the sacred clown, because deep down my father's also like a payaso, like a sacred clown, and he had to hide it too. So then that's why he would suppress me, but he wouldn't know it.
Because you have a tattoo, right? That says Payasa.
Yeah,
right?
payasa, and it's the makeup.
Yeah.
A
That's what I
blush.
was thinking of when I was editing. I was like, oh, wait.
A living memorial. Yeah. Is that what you were thinking it was? That
Just like connected to like the Payasa and like the tattoo that you had. I was like, I feel like it's something here.
yeah, for sure. And it was giving my dad like some compassion here that I don't normally have. And I'm really proud of this one as well.
I guess my next question just has to do with like the biblical scriptures and how you think people who aren't religious might receive those poems and
Yeah.
those references, and if they're not able or not familiar with them, like how
Yeah.
they'll be able to better understand the poems.
When I was writing the book, I thought that they were poetic within themselves. That it's like, oh, is that from the Bible? Or I don't know. Like when I was in it, I always felt that the Bible was pretty poetic, and I loved the language that it used. And so I actually helped me in the book to be more inspired by it. And I don't know if they have trouble. I'm not really sure what I could do about it.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. Like in my mind, I didn't think so because they were already really poetic as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's kind of like the same for when authors or poets include Spanish and no translation, right?
Yeah.
So it's like these are choices that the authors, poets, editors, possibly even make. And to go off of everything you've been saying, Cassie, it's kind of just like this is your poem. This is what you're trying to get across. These are your feelings you're processing, and fuck everybody else, right? Like if you get it, you get it, cool. If not, well, it's something that speaks to you.
Yeah.
So that's how I take it, you know.
Yeah. And they can look it up,
Yeah,
if they're
yeah.
really invested
Exactly.
in my work and this book.
Yeah.
And then you have the notes there too.
I do. Yeah.
So that helps.
There was one that you didn't reference it specifically in the poem, but it's in the notes. And I was having a hard time connecting it to the poem.
Oh yeah.
Tell me, Vanessa.
It was like John 4:18, I think.
It was one of the last ones, no? Or at the well.
Yeah, at the well. Because when I read the scripture, I was like, I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. What page is at the well? Sorry.
It was 43.
Where is it? This line, and I sighed deeply into his arms, holding my hand over his belly, coming here again to draw water. So in that, the woman is at the well, getting water. And so that story is she has a husband, but also like another person that she's with. And so that's kind of a reference to what's happening here, that I'm still married, but I also am trying to reconnect with my high school boyfriend that's throughout the book. And only to find that his answer was no to me. Oh, I hope that answers that. Yeah.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that, and like how Jesus knew, it's like, well, you go home to your husband or whatever. And so that was like a reference to that.
Okay, no, yeah, that makes sense.
And I throw like little nuggets throughout there, like when it's about the high school boyfriend and when it's about somebody else. And I mean, I don't know, like I don't know if I did this book, like as a writer, you never know, and you can always make it better. And so you have to come to terms with like, this is the finished product. And I know I probably could have done it better, but this is what it is. Like you could keep editing forever and ever and never get to where you want it. And I felt like I got it as close as I could, but it's hard to translate grief. It's hard to translate like what's happening. And I tried my best to throw in like same types of stuff, like, the hand over his belly. And earlier, when I would stick my finger in his belly. So like readers would know, oh, she's talking about the same person. Yeah. I'm trying to get reviews for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you know anybody.
I'm like us.
Yeah.
Reviews on like
How do you get
Goodreads?
reviews? Yeah,
or like on
I think like people
I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's XOLO Books is going to review it. I reached out to them, and they wanted to know like what was it about. They're like, oh wow, that sounds interesting. We love to review it. So Edward sent them a copy. So like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sounds like it might be Cholo books.
No, it's reference to the dog, the Aztec dog.
Yeah. So they
Oxel, or I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
yeah, like the
Yeah.
Cholo Squinkle, I think.
Yeah.
But they do call it a Cholo.
That's the
Short.
nickname for it.
Yeah.
Is it?
hmm
Okay.
I think it might be, but
Oh.
could be wrong.
From like Dia los Muertos, right? That dog.
Yeah, that dog.
Yeah, the hairless.
Yeah.
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 But they shortened it just to XOLO.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about that, to get a review from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any other poem-specific questions for Cassie? Or Cassie, do you have any other poems you want to talk about?
Correct us on.
Correct us on, even though
Okay.
you haven't heard part 2 yet, but
Right.
I know, right?
Where
My
is
bad.
it? The ones about the tattoo were more of shame that I feel that I ran to a tattoo shop to cover up my pain instead of dealing with it. So it was me saying like, what did I do to this holy temple kind of thing?
Nice. Okay. The way out on page 29. What's behind all the blacked out? I'm just kidding.
oh, I have a
Give me
similar
the answers.
question.
No, I'm just kidding.
And
Actually, you did choose very interesting moments to include that
Yeah.
on the way out.
yeah, I mean, it's part of the stutter, and it was based off of a dream I had. I was just so traumatized after my daughter was born, and she was born at home, and she had to be transferred to the hospital, and she was in the NICU. So I just kept having these like nightmares, and I wanted to block out the words as part of the stutter. Like I said, like I was trying to imagine how do you write a stutter on a page that's poetic? And that's really difficult. But I felt like that was the best way to do this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm proud of it too.
So I have a similar-ish question for page 65 under
I was
insert
just gonna say
title.
though, before we get to that, thematically it reminded me also of the Kins, the way out. The crying Kins, like the
Yeah.
just even if that wasn't intentional, there was
Yeah.
an element there.
Yeah. Well, throughout the book, I talk about like the body, like missing parts to animals or to people, myself. It's part of the cover, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. All right.
One at a time,
65.
please.
I'm like, are you done?
So page
Did
65.
my thing.
Page 65, yeah, for insert title. I thought that was a really interesting choice too, because instead of blackout, you have crossed out most of the poem, and you only have the last line fully visible.
Yeah.
And no title. I mean, it's just insert title. So what?
Yeah.
Can you talk about this?
So
I don't even know what to ask. It's just like, talk about it, please.
So with this one, I had such a hard time. Like I needed to add a resolution to leaving the church, leaving my faith. And it's like, how can I resolve this? How can it be revisions? And I just had no damn title for it. And I was like, you know what? I'll let people insert their own title. And so, I mean, the poem started off just regular, and I was like, no, I don't like this. So I found a way to cross it out. And it's like, well, you won't find him here. You know, you're not going to find him there in the church. So you have to find him somewhere else if he's able to be found.
I do like that instead of like blacking out completely,
Yeah.
you can still read what's there.
Right. And it's
Almost
part
like
of,
a pentimiento.
yeah.
Whereas Jorge called it the petinato pentimiento.
Hey.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Coming up on part 2.
Yeah.
I can't wait to. Yeah, but it's also part of like the revisions, right? It's like I'm writing this. It's like, no, this isn't right. I'm just gonna keep it though. It was just kind of a good idea.
Yeah.
I was almost gonna toss it out, but I was like, I'll just keep what I was doing and just cross it out.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that.
Thanks.
And so, yeah, I guess beyond the 5 stages of grief and of stuttering, you do, of course, wrestle a lot with like the religious angle, and we talked about that at length. But just in terms of like the bookends, you start with like this kind of Genesis calling right in the beginning, and then you end with the darkness. And so I'm wondering, like, was that intentional from the beginning, or like how did you think about those 2 bookend poems with the kittens?
Yeah. So it's kind of like that story is what started my whole grief since I was 7 years old. And the consequences of that. Like in Martha's Vineyard, one of the prompts was, what are you obsessed with? And I really love that because I never thought about it. And I was like, well, what am I obsessed with? And I was thinking about like connection, how I always crave it. But then I went further as to be like, no, I'm obsessed with loss of connection because that comes up in my writing and my art, even in my music, like time and time again about I'm not connected to this thing or this person and I want to fix it. And so I didn't want to end the book like, oh, everything's fine. I went through the stages and, everything's good. I wanted to show that it was like the consequence of loving this person because of the kittens. It's going to like circle around. Like grief is circular. It's not linear. It doesn't, it kind of like circles back. And sometimes it skips stages. And so I just wanted to point that out, the circular motion of it.
Yeah.
How it never ends. And it's true. Like, these are always going to haunt me.
Yeah, I think we did touch up on that, right? Like the nonlinear fashion of like dealing with grief. Like you're going to come back to stuff and you think you're getting somewhere and then something you won't even know will take you back to it. And so it's just kind of just going through the cycle, right?
Yeah. And it definitely shows up in my body, like physically and in my poems. And I have a lot of like pelvic issues, hip issues. And I touch on that as well. Just going through like the medical system and trying to find out what's happening. I'm getting a procedure done on Monday, an injection in my spine. So it's like I'm getting closer to the answers. If that doesn't work, then the next step is surgery. And I'm just like, I just want to be pain-free. Like, I don't remember what it's like to walk without pain or sit without like the pinching. Because it turns out I have a disc bulge from giving birth. Yeah.
Well, hopefully it goes well. And hopefully we're, like you said, one step closer to resolution.
I mean, I think I enjoy the process of grief. I mean, of course, I don't enjoy it as a whole, but I enjoy it because I just want to heal and I want to grow. I don't want to stay stuck because you can't build a life on sadness and pain all the time.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great place to maybe end the the interview, unless there's anything else that anyone wants to.
Well, something we always ask is where people can follow and support your work online.
Yeah, so Instagram, I'm La Poeta 915. I have a website, CassieHP.com, where you can buy the 5 stages of stuttering. You can buy the Lamb's Tail, and then you could see my 2 art shows that I had, and then a video of me playing the theremin. So, yeah.
Nice.
Right. Well, thank you for coming, Cassie.
Thank you so
Thank you for
much.
talking to us about your books, and we wish you nothing but the most success.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on our 100th episode of Literally Literary, recorded at Power at the Pass and brought to you by Border Census. This episode, we continued our discussion on the 5 stages of stuttering by Cassie Olguin Petinato. If you haven't read it, we hope we inspire you to pick up a copy. Join us on our next episode and follow us on Instagram at literallyliterary.ep.